Hello, dear listeners, and welcome back to my cozy little corner of the internet. My name is Sarah Ashworth, and in the previous episode, Jasper followed Eric's trail to a mysterious ship out at sea and was dragged into a dark room. In today's episode, we shall continue this intriguing story. So, grab your favourite beverage, sit back, relax, and I shall begin. Chapter 10. The Truth. Jasper cried out as he struggled against his attacker, but the room was dark and the shock of being grabbed deactivated his spell. He didn't have the space to reactivate it, as he was busy trying to free himself from whoever had grabbed him. He grunted as his back was slammed against the wall. The blow stunned him, and he would have slumped down if it wasn't for the arms holding him in place. Instead, he blinked, focusing as much as he could in the dark on the figure that was holding him. He tried his best to look out for any features that would stand out, but all he saw was blue eyes staring back at him. "You shouldn't have come here," a familiar voice whispered to him. Jasper blinked, confused, as the arms loosened their grip on him. Jasper held the wall for support for a second before being able to steady himself. He quickly raised a hand and created another orb of light with his magic, and held it out in front of him, as he walked towards the man that had grabbed him. When he got close enough, the man's features were illuminated by the orb. Jasper sighed, half with relief and half out of frustration. "Seriously, Eric?" he grumbled as he saw the young man rub his arms. Jasper's gaze immediately softened. "Sorry if I hurt you, but you really scared me, grabbing me like that." Eric chuckled weakly as he gave Jasper a guilty smile. "Sorry for grabbing you like that," he apologized genuinely. "I heard footsteps, and I didn't realize it was you until I grabbed you." He paused, his expression turning to anger once more. "I meant what I said, though. You shouldn't have come." Now it was Jasper's turn to be angry. "And why is that, Eric?" he demanded as Eric turned and started to walk away. Jasper quickly reached out and grabbed his arm, pulling him back. "No running away. I want answers. You owe me that much." Eric scowled at Jasper when his arm was grabbed, but he didn't move this time. He simply sighed. "Because I didn't want you to get involved in this," he responded sincerely, causing Jasper to let go of his arm. Eric sat down on the cold steel floor. "You seemed like you really wanted to help, so I didn't try to stop you at first," he began to explain as Jasper sat down next to him. "But the more we talked, the more we reconnected, He paused and looked down at his feet. "I realized that I didn't want you involved any more than you already were." He looked up to meet Jasper's gaze, but he was surprised at how soft his gaze was. "You were in danger because of me, and I couldn't handle that. Not after what happened that night." Jasper sat silently and listened as Eric bared his soul. The poor guy clearly had a lot to get off his chest. He wondered exactly what he had been through to get to that point, but now wasn't really the time to ask that. He reached his hand out and hesitated for a second before gently placing his hand on Eric's shoulder as if to say, "I'm here for you." Eric smiled a little. He seemed to appreciate the silent gesture. "What happened that night?" Jasper's question broke the serene silence. Eric turned his head away from Jasper and looked out directly ahead of him as he slowly stood up. "All right, I'll tell you what I remember." The storm raged fiercely as Eric helped batten down the hatches, despite being told to stay put by the gruff fisherman. But Eric wasn't the type to sit around and do nothing while others worked hard for their survival. Eric and the fishermen braced themselves against the wind as they hammered nails to secure the canvas to the porthole before moving to the next one. As they worked, there was a faint sound that could just about be heard over the storm and wind. Though it steadily grew louder, Eric strained his ears to hear, as did the other fishermen. After a while, they could hear it, a voice calling out through the storm. It was singing, a beautiful yet haunting melody. Eric's eyes widened with horror as he realized what it was. He groaned and shielded his eyes from the flash of lightning right above them. When it ended, he knew what he had to do. "Cover your ears!" he yelled out as loudly as he could over the storm and the song. "Don't listen!" He dropped his hammer and ran to the fishermen and started yelling the same thing repeatedly. They all just looked at him confused and annoyed at his antics. "Will someone get him out of here?" one of the fishermen yelled as Eric was grabbed by the fisherman that he was helping before. "You don't understand," he called out as he struggled to get free. "You're all in danger. You'll die if you don't listen to me." His cries fell on deaf ears as one by one the fishermen succumbed to the hypnotic song. Eric looked on in horror as their eyes became dull and their faces were blank. Eric broke free of the fisherman's grip and turned to face him. "Snap out of it, please," he called out desperately before he winced. He clasped his hands tightly over his ears, but it was too late. The song had started to affect him too, but he tried so hard to resist. Eric groaned as his vision blurred and he heard his heart beating rhythmically in his chest. He kept trying to fight it, kept trying to resist. Through his blurred vision he spotted the jagged rocks rapidly homing into view. He turned his head to see the fisherman in the wheelhouse of the boat, steering it towards the rocks. His eyes dulled like all the others. Eric weakly reached his hand out in a last desperate attempt to stop him before he passed out. The next thing I knew, I was in the hospital with no idea what happened. Eric finished his story as he turned to face Jasper, who was staring at him in shock. I didn't know what happened to those men, but I'm sure they're dead, and that it's my fault. Jasper shook his head, giving him a sympathetic smile. You didn't kill them. It was whoever sung that song, Jasper told him, trying to sound encouraging. He wasn't sure if he should tell Eric about the man that was washed up. Eric felt guilty enough already. We just have to find the source and deal with it, and it all stops, right? Eric nodded. Yeah, it should be on this ship. Somewhere, he responded. Or it would lead to the source. Well, let's just hope that the source is on the ship, Jasper remarked with a nervous laugh. He hadn't left the island in a long time, but the thought of it made him nervous. It's not too late to back out, Eric quipped half seriously. But there was a part of him that hoped Jasper would take the out he was being offered. He didn't need anyone else getting hurt because of him. On the other hand, he was glad Jasper was there. Jasper simply shook his head. No, I'm with you all the way, he stated defiantly. There was no way he was going to let Eric go this time. Just consider it repayment for falling asleep when you needed me. Yeah, about that, Eric whispered as he averted his gaze. Jasper looked at him, wondering what he meant, as the redhead reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out a potion vial. Jasper reached out and took the bottle before he realized what it was. You drugged me with my own potion? He snapped as Eric stepped back a little. He expected Jasper to be annoyed, but it was still a little bit of a shock to hear him yell. To protect you, Eric explained defensively. I thought it would be better if you didn't get involved. Jasper scowled at Eric and placed the vial in his pocket. Also, I know it was a stupid idea. Yeah, it was a stupid idea, Jasper retorted. If you gave me the wrong dosage, I could have been asleep for a very long time. He just shook his head. He wasn't as mad as he thought he should have been. Maybe the whole thing had made him too exhausted to really be mad. Still, he didn't appreciate being drugged with his own potion. What you did was stupid, but I'm here now, and I'm not going to leave. Eric chuckled a little. He was glad that Jasper wasn't yelling at him anymore. So you didn't get my message then? Jasper blinked, confused. What message? My song, Eric explained as he paced around Jasper. I did it as a warning for any approaching boats and ships to stay away. I knew it was you, Jasper exclaimed as he pointed a finger at Eric. I knew it was your voice I heard. Though weirdly enough, when I tried to get close, my body resisted. It was like it didn't want to approach, he admitted, though part of him wondered if he should have heeded the warning. I had to push back hard to get through. Eric just stared at Jasper for the longest time, before he started laughing. You are a strange guy, Jasper, he remarked as he leaned on a wall, not taking his eyes off Jasper. You ignored the warning I gave to help me. I'm not sure if I should be annoyed or flattered. Jasper pouted in response to Eric's teasing. Why wasn't he taking his efforts seriously? All he wanted to do was make things right between them. Why not both? He asked in an exasperated tone. A slight tinge of red appeared on his face. Eric tapped his chin in thought. He kept making the noise people tended to make when in thought. Was it to annoy Jasper? Probably. But it did require some thought. Come on, man, I'm serious. Jasper snapped at Eric as the latter gave him a playful smirk. Okay, I was just teasing you, Eric responded as he gave Jasper a light pat on the shoulder. Now you know how I felt when you used to tease me all those years ago. Oh, come on, I wasn't that bad, Jasper protested as Eric raised an eyebrow. He wanted to give a response, but before he could open his mouth, he heard the faint sound of an all too familiar song. You heard that, right? Eric asked, concerned as Jasper nodded. Eric took a breath, trying to resist it as best he could. He saw Jasper grimacing with a lot of effort to not succumb to it. We stayed here too long, he spoke, grabbing Jasper's hand and dragging him to another door on the other side of the room. As they approached it, they heard banging at the previous door. Jasper turned back and saw the doorknob turning. There's no time! Eric opened the door and dragged Jasper through it into another dark hallway. Jasper kept looking behind him, trying to look and listen for any signs of their pursuers. Though he couldn't see anything, it was difficult for him to stay focused, with Eric dragging him through the hallway that flickered with dim lights as they ran past, and the song that was slowly making his brain fuzzy. His hearing suddenly picked up on the door opening behind them, and in a dull sense of panic, he tripped and fell on the cold steel floor. His hand feebly reached out as Eric kept running, not realizing that Jasper had fallen behind. "Eric?" Jasper murmured as he slowly pulled himself up. He looked around and spotted a couple of ship workers that were pursuing them, but they simply walked past him without even giving him a second thought. "Weird," he muttered, though he didn't have the energy to think about it more. The song echoed through his head as he stepped forward instinctively. He then put his other foot forward and kept up the pattern until he was slowly walking down the hallway. Thud, thud, thud. His steady footsteps echoed against the steel floor. Each light flickered dimly as he trudged on in his slow march, making his way to a location that only his subconscious knew. The hallway stretched on for miles as he kept his pace without stopping. Was this his life now? Blindly following what a song was telling him. He turned a corner and there was a dark room near the end. As he inched closer, he could just about hear a strange noise that penetrated his brain. "Huh?" he uttered as his eyes started to brighten a little, and his pace quickened as if he was awakened from a strange slumber. "Eric? Is that you?" Jasper finally approached the door, the strange noise getting louder. He peered inside and saw a sliver of moonlight peering through the portholes. With the small amount of natural light, he was able to make out a desk in the middle of the room. Sat at the desk was a figure, though their head was slumped forward, making it difficult to see any facial features. Jasper shook his head, trying to fully rouse himself from the effects of the song. He really should have covered his ears when he had the chance, but they were in such a rush that it didn't even cross either of their minds. "Eric? Are you in here?" He called out softly as he stepped into the room and made his way towards the desk. As he did so, he heard the same sounds he did before, only it was much clearer than before. He glanced around the room and spotted a radio emitting static. It reverberated through his skull, making him dizzy, though there was something else, hidden among the static. The song was still playing. He groaned as he stumbled and fell into the table. He just about managed to spot familiar red hair before he passed out. That is the end of today's episode. We made it to episode 10. Thank you so much. It wouldn't have been possible without you all listening to my podcast. Jasper confronted Eric about his actions, and Eric finally remembered what happened the night of the fishing boat incident. The poor guy was relieved to get it off his chest. Now, it looks like both boys are in danger. Will they be able to get out of it? Find out in the next episode.